The Rise of Skywalker novelization is said to bring a lot of new things into canon, so obviously that gets my attention. The book is set to come out March 17th, and there's already been lots of controversy floating around about the things that the book is either changing about the movie or adding to the movie. And I thought it might be a good idea to just kind of sit down and talk about some of the things we know that are going to be affected and talked about more in the book. Some of these are interesting, some of them are strange, but some of them are also really exciting. IGN just released an article titled The 17 Things That what is the title? Let me see real quick. Yeah, Star Wars, 17 Ways the Rise of Skywalker novelization adds to the movie. So, and I do agree that a lot of it's adding to the movie, not always changing things, just kind of expanding. And obviously all books do this because books tend to be able to dive deeper into things in movies. But this one is said to be a little different in regards that it's going to give us, more like deleted scenes and extras that are going to be part of canon. And I think that's really exciting. And some of it we might like and some of it we might hate. But if you're interested, you can actually pre-order the book now. Like I said, it comes out March 17th. But in the description, I'll provide a link. We are Amazon affiliates now. So what that means is if you use our Amazon link to order it through Amazon, it actually costs you the exact same, but also supports our channel and page. It's a really awesome way. If you're planning on getting the book anyways, you can kind of show your love and support to us. And we just appreciate it and all the support. We promise that all the money we receive from the channel goes right back into the channel because this is what we love doing. This is, everything that we want to do in the Star Wars universe. So we just all supporting us just goes right back into the channel and making it even better for you guys and everything like that. But without further ado, let's dive into some of these ways that the Skywalker novel is going to change or add to the movie. The first on their list is Palpatine's message. So the Palpatine's message is talked about in the opening crawl of the movie. And the weirdest thing to me is that if you wanted to have heard this message before, you had to have played Fortnite, which is just the strangest place to put the message for this entire movie. But the message from Fortnite was that Palpatine supposedly sent out to the galaxy says, "At last, the work of generations is complete. The great error is corrected. The day of victory is at hand. The day of revenge. The day of the Sith." And that is the message that they're all talking about, where they're trying to figure out, is Palpatine really alive? And before, like I said, you can only find it in this video game, but now it's going to be included in the novel, which I think it should have been included in the movie to begin with. So I'm pretty happy they decided to include it in the novel. The next one is Leia's Jedi training. So, they talk about how they were able to do some of that in the movie, but, unfortunately because of the lack of Carrie being able to be there in person, they didn't go over the top with it. But they do dive into that a little bit more in the novel. And this is what they said on it. Most notably, the novel shows Leia reflecting back on her Jedi training with Luke even before that important flashback scene. Leia remembers the ways in which her brother used to antagonize her, a la Yoda, to bring out her full potential. Leia even remembers an incident where she managed to hover in midair, proving that she had access to powers even Luke didn't. And I thought that was really cool, because I don't think that undermines Luke at all. I think it just really shows Leia was powerful too. We know Yoda even wanted to train Leia more than he wanted to train Luke originally. Plus, it's a neat little tie-in when we see Rey being trained by Leia, and she's learning that little hovering in midair power. Goes to show that obviously Leia was the right one to be able to teach her that. Just showing that, she had power in the Force, and it'd be interesting to have seen what Leia would have been as a full-fledged Jedi Knight or even Jedi Master. Number 3 talks about Kylo Ren on Mustafar. So the opening scene, which went over a lot of people's heads, including mine the first time I watched it, actually, of the movie, takes place on Mustafar. And it's Vader's castle, which is in total shambles and ruins at this point. And that is where Kylo Ren is looking for the Wayfinder. The book is going to talk more about his time on Mustafar, hopefully exploring Vader's castle ruins a little more, because that's always been super interesting to me. And it's talking about how he's going to meet this oracle type of person. It's like a creature called the Eye of Webbish Bog, which is kind of creepy sounding, a spider-like being. and apparently he's able to tell Kylo where to find the Sith Wayfinder. But a little bit more on Mustafar in the book. Palpatine's clone body, this is one that's been floating around the internet I've seen, and a lot of people are either like it, hate it, not sure how to feel about it. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but it talks about how Palpatine is confirmed in the book to have actually been a clone, and it says that, let's see here, the details on how he cheated death. He relied on Sith secrets he stole from Darth Plagueis to create his clone body, and then he managed to tear his spirit out of his body before it was destroyed aboard the second Death Star. And he was able to transfer it into that clone. But because the clone was unfinished, Palpatine has faced a ticking clock in finding a new and more permanent vessel, and that's maybe what he's looking for on Kylo or Rey. By the time Episode 9, Palpatine's clone body seemingly days, if not hours, away from death. So his spirit has almost maybe hopped from different clones, trying to find a body that it could possess, one that was strong enough. And that's why at the end he's really seeking Rey out, or somebody who he feels he can transfer his spirit into, to carry his spirit on. I thought it was an interesting way. I personally didn't like the thought of him surviving the Death Star, because I just can't imagine how he could have done that with it being blown up directly after he fell down the shaft. So to me, the cloning thing isn't as bad, but I know a lot of people aren't as satisfied with that answer as well. This one I found was interesting. It's called Rey's New Lightsabers. It says that it's going to talk about Rey's lightsaber, her building it, and then most notably that apparently she was working on 2 lightsabers. One that was actually a double-bladed design inspired by the one she saw in that vision that would have folded open. And apparently, it was going to be double-bladed, but at the end of the day, after comparing the 2 in the novel, she's going to decide to go with the one that is single-bladed that we see at the end, confirmed actually to be single-bladed, her yellow lightsaber built from her staff. And anyways, I always think it's cool to dive into lightsabers and how they're made and things like that. Rose Tico, her role is going to be expanded a little bit. It does say she doesn't have a much bigger role in the book, but that we will get to see kind of a little bit more of why she stayed back on Agent Kloss and some of the things that she was doing to help the Resistance as well, to give Kelly Marie Tran's character a little bit more depth and a little bit more time. Lando's missing child. This is something that went over my head the first time I watched it until I had it brought up to me, and I can't remember first where, but there's a lot of things that we learned after the Rise of Skywalker movie from directors talking and from characters talking, and one of the things we found out is that Jannah is actually Lando's daughter, and a lot of people probably don't even know that because it was such a blown over thing. He apparently had a daughter who was taken from him, and they could never find her, and it's because she was taken by the First Order, and it turns out to be Jannah. So it's kind of a cool coincidence in the Force that they reunited at the end, and that's why he's asking her what her story is. But apparently the book will go into a little bit more detail about why Lando feels a connection to her, and maybe also why he feels that I guess his calling now is to help people be reunited with their families who were taken from the First Order, which I think is a really cool and noble thing, and I'm excited to learn a little bit about that. The source of Force healing is going to be something that they're going to dive into a little bit too, and I think that that's something that should have been addressed in the movie as well, although we didn't, first hear about it in the movie. We actually technically first heard about it in The Mandalorian, but it's something that was such a big part of the movie with the ending and everything like that, that I thought it should have been expressed or explained, I should say, a little bit more in detail. So I'm glad to see that we'll get a little bit more information on that from the novelization. I'm really interested to see kind of how this works and how it affects, the user of the power, exactly how, we know Rey learned it from the Jedi texts and from Luke and his notes in the Jedi text. But how Kylo would have learned it is interesting to me, and just kind of curious to see exactly what else they add to this kind of new mystery power here. Chewie's memories of Ben is going to be expanded on a little bit, and that's something that definitely should have been in the movie for the emotional standpoint of it, especially with Ben coming back to the light. It would have been amazing if, Uncle Chewie could have played some sort of part in that. But I'll talk a little bit about, let me read a little bit about what this says. It says, when Chewie is brought aboard the First Order Star Destroyer after being captured on Pasaana, Kylo Ren visits his old friend and attempts to pull information from his mind. In the process, he sees images of a younger Chewbacca and Han Solo in their glory days, before stumbling across memories of Chewie's days bonding with young Ben. Coming so soon before Ren's fateful battle with Rey on Kef Bir, this encounter probably played a key role in pushing him back to the light. I love the idea that Chewie could have, played some sort of role in Ben being redeemed, because Chewie's such a pure, awesome character. He's just one of those characters that everybody loves, and he's such a good guy, or a good Wookiee. And to think that, he's like Ben's uncle, and they had memories together, and for Ben to get to see that had to have tugged at his heartstrings a little bit, I would think. It also gives a little nugget in here on this IGN article that Lando, when he goes on the Millennium Falcon, he explores the old ship, and he visits Chewie's cabin and stumbles across a hollow recording of Chewie and young Ben. So it's clear that Chewie still loves Ben, looks at him as like a nephew, and, wants him to be redeemed as much as Leia and Han did. Finn's force sensitivity is going to be talked about a little bit more. I do think that was something that kind of was brushed over a little bit in the movie. It's definitely there when you look back at it, but the fact that that's what he was trying to tell Rey the whole time was surprising to me. So I think that it's interesting that they'll dive into this a little bit more. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more clear of a look of, how he feels the Force and why and when it started and things like that. But I'm definitely excited, and I hope, past the Rise of Skywalker, we'll get to learn a little bit more about Finn, maybe doing some Jedi training with Rey. I think that'd be really fun. This one really got me excited. It's Luke's Unseen Presence. We're going to get a little bit more of Force Ghost Luke, kind of giving him a little bit bigger role in the novel, which I still think he should have had a bigger role in the movie as well. But Leia supposedly gets to hear Luke a little bit more at several points in the book, and Luke, kind of helps her and guides her through the Force. The escape from Kijimi is an interesting thing that gets blown over in the movie. We think that Babu Frick and Zori Bliss are probably dead when Kijimi is blown up, and we find out at the end of the battle that they're not, and that they somehow escaped. So it looks like we're finally get to learn exactly how they escaped, how they were able to, meet up with the Resistance to be in the last battle on Exegol. The Final Order and the Sith Eternal will be dived into a little bit more. We're going to find out a little bit more about the Sith Eternal, these Sith worshippers who helped Palpatine's cloning process and helped him come back to life. Basically like this Sith cult that lives on Exegol, and we're going to learn more about the Sith fleet and how it came to be, and how they were able to build an army, which I'm excited to learn a lot about, because they obviously built quite a big army in I wouldn't say a short amount of time, but hidden and unknown to everyone else. Palpatine's son, this is another one that really got a lot of people heated on the internet this last couple weeks, and it's revealed in this book that Palpatine's son wasn't actually a direct son through the way we would think, that he was actually a failed unidentical clone. And I've seen a lot of people who are upset by this, and they say, well, it would have been much more believable if Palpatine did have a son. And I can see that too. I'm not sure how I stand on this issue. A lot of people have mentioned that it doesn't make sense for a clone to not be identical, but I guess the way I look at it is we just don't know exactly what cloning capabilities there are out there. I personally always had theories that maybe Rey was a clone from Luke's hand and the DNA in that, and so I always just assumed cloning could be done in different ways than just identical clones, obviously like we see in the Clone Wars. But it's a fictional universe, so there's a million ways that they can spin it, and this is how they chose to spin it. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm not really sure how to feel, but apparently Rey's dad was indeed a clone, not necessarily a physical son, which is interesting, to say the least. One thing it does show is that Force sensitivity, I guess, maybe was able to go through the son who was a clone and then down to Rey. And there's been a question for a long time in canon. In Legends, we knew that, clones could have children, but we didn't know that for sure in canon yet, so that kind of answers that question for us. The Force dyad and the Rule of Two is going to get addressed a little bit more in the book. It does say that we might not learn exactly all the details about the Force dyad, but that it does kind of tie into the Rule of Two. Apparently, the Rule of Two was instituted in an attempt by Bane to create a Force dyad, and it just never really worked out exactly that way. But apparently Force dyad is one of the most powerful combos that you can have in the galaxy, and I'm excited to learn how that ties into the Sith and how that ties into the Rule of Two. Always a good opportunity to learn more about the Old Republic and some of the old lore like that. And our Rebels heroes return. It talks about how the Ghost is specifically mentioned, the ship the Ghost from Rebels. So I'm thinking we may get a Hera brief mention. I'm not sure, but it does say that you will hear in the book there'll be the captain of the Ghost talking over the intercom. And then just Leia in general is going to get a little bit more of scenes naturally, because Carrie Fisher unfortunately passing away before this movie was filmed. They were limited on what they could do, although they did do a really good job with what they had. And the fact that the book can obviously dive into Leia a little more is really exciting. Leia's absolutely one of my favorite characters. I've enjoyed Bloodline, all the other Leia Princess of Alderaan, all these other novels about her character are some of my favorite books in canon now. And I'm excited for any opportunity to learn more about Leia and Carrie Fisher's character. This book, like I said, comes out March 17th. It'll be interesting to see how you look at the movie after reading the book, and if it will be better or worse, I'm not sure, but I do know that I am excited to see, a lot of the extended scenes and stuff, especially with there not being any deleted scenes on the movie itself. This will kind of be a way to dive into the story a little bit more, because personally I'm not ready for, the Rise of Skywalker, the Skywalker saga in general, just to be done. I want a little bit more, so this is a good way to do that. Like I said, guys, with us being an Amazon affiliate, I'm going to put that link in our description, so go ahead and use that. If you're planning on ordering this book, you can pre-order it now, and order it, obviously, past the 17th once it comes out. Use our link, guys. It would mean a ton to us. You can even use our link and choose the Audible option on the book, and you can get an Audible free trial for $0. You can get the book for free, and even if you cancel before the 30 days is up, you get to keep the book. So it's a great way to even try out the book for free, and get a free book, see if you like Audible. Either way, it supports the channel, though, so it'd mean a lot to us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, check us out on Instagram and Facebook, and as always, may the Force be with you.